In this video, I'm going to guide you through the steps to draw 462, the gasket. Big thing to note on this one, this drawing is in metric. That means each of these numbers is not talking about inches, but is in fact talking about the standard for metric, which is going to be millimeters. 8 times 16. What is that talking about? Well, if you look what it's pointing to a circle. And if you count, there are 8 of them. So there are 8 dimensions that are identical. They are each a diameter of 16 units. So each of these little circles is 16 millimeters in diameter. I have a 45-degree angle for a reference line. I have a diameter, you can see it goes all the way through, of 110 for this circle. I have a diameter, largest diameter on the page, 145. That's the outer ring of our gasket. I have a diameter of 75. That's the inner ring of our gasket. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 5 dimensions for this drawing. But this is critical. If you do not let your viewer know that it is in metric, they are going to assume the scale and the sizes and the numbers are all going to be in inches. So we have to draw it in metric, and then we have to label it and make sure our reader knows that it is metric. Let's go ahead and get started. I have created a template using Miss K's recommendations for the layout. You can see I've got my center line marked. I've dropped in some construction lines for my up, down, my verticals, and my horizontals. I've got a 3.5-inch box for the name, so go ahead and fill in the name. I've got inch boxes for date and scale and drawing number. We're going to draw this 1-to-1, so you can put a 1-to-1 in here. 1-to-1 for the scale. So if you're going to be drawing number 1, or you can put what, 4-62. The date, name of this is gasket, put your name there. Go ahead and fill that out. So let's see how we want to tackle this drawing. I think what I want to do is go ahead and set up all my construction lines first. So I've got my vertical and my horizontal already based on the template from SK. I want to drop in these 45 degrees to set up the rest of my circles. So to do that, I'm going to use my T-square. And I want to make sure I get my 45-degree triangle. Here it is, 45, 45, 90. And right through the center of the paper, I'm going to draw in my little plus first. And then I'm going to extend, again, these are construction lines. These are not object lines. So I'll be using gentle pressure, enough to make sure I can get through my whole circle. And now I'm going to go in the other direction. Same spot. Start with the plus, 1/8 of an inch. Actually, it looks more like a quarter. And we're going to extend construction lines radiating out in both directions. All right, so now I can start by putting in my circles. I want to work inside out. If I work outside in, I might get my fingers on stuff I've already drawn. So I want to work inside out. So my inside ring, I can see is set to 75 diameter. That's diameter. I need half of that. So if I take 75 and divide it by 2, I can do it in my head, or I can use my handy dandy wrist calculator. I can get 37.5 millimeters. All right, so let me grab my compass. Make sure your compass is set correctly. Got your pencil lead lined up with the tip of your pencil. I'm sorry, your metal point. That looks good. Nice point to the end of that. Yep, looks good. All right, so how am I going to measure this? Well, this is metric. So that means I got to grab a metric ruler. If you grab this ruler that says architect and it has a 16 on the end, it's not going to work. The 16, of course, means that there are 16 lines between 0 and 1, or every line is a 16th of an inch. Architect ruler does not have a metric side. Let me go look in the tool bag. Ah, I have this one, the engineering ruler. Yep, there's the 32. 32 lines between 0 and 1. Every line is a 32nd of an inch. This one will work. The opposite side of the same face, I'll rotate it around, is metric. I can see it starts at 0 and it ends at 30. That is the standard numbers on any metric ruler. It goes from 0 to 30, 30 centimeters. Each little line is a millimeter. There are 10 lines for every centimeter, so there are individual lines for millimeters. And you can see there's a nice big bump at the halfway mark. Every 5 millimeters gets a little guideline. This 0.01 means that each little line is a millimeter. And there are 1 to 100 for scale. There's 100 centimeters in a whole meter. So this is my metric side. I actually am partial to using these little clips. So once I know which side I'm using, I'm going to put a clip on the top. Makes it easy to pick up, move it around, and then I don't have to try to hunt and find the right side every time. I just, boom, there's my metric. All right, so I want to set my compass. Inner ring 75 half was, what did we say that was? 37.5, right? 37.5? Yeah, 37.5. So I'm going to protect my drawing here. I put in a piece of scrap paper down. I don't want to get any. All right, 37.5. There's no way to do this without getting my hands in the way. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Put the metal tip at 0. I want 37 millimeters. So that means I'm going to go to 3. And then, so that's 3 centimeters. I need to go to 0.75. So I'm going to go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's that bump. 2 more. 6, 7.5 would be halfway in between the 7 and 8 mark. So it looks like I'm at 37.5. Yep, 37.5. Get this out of the way. All right, here we go. I'm actually going to punch through the paper. And using gentle, I'm going to put a construction line. Dragging the compass around. Making sure I am satisfied with where it is. That looks fantastic. Oh, it's amazing. Let's darken that baby in and make it an object line. Okay, our first circle is drawn. All right, our next ring, these are concentric, meaning they have the same center point. 110 millimeters goes all the way across. That's a diameter dimension again. So if I'm going to use my compass, I have to set it to half of that. Half of 110, half of 100 is 50, half of 10 is 5, 50, 55. Let me get my engineering ruler out here. Again, looking at the metric side. And keep my paper clean. We're going to set this to 55. 55, or 5.5 centimeters. Using the same center point. This one is a construction line. So I'm going to do a very gentle line first, barely applying pressure. And once I'm satisfied, I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit darker, just a little bit, because I'm using this as for dimensioning. And my last ring, 145. 145, you take that into 2, and you get 72.5, right? 140 is half of 70, half of 5 is 2.5, 72.5. All right, so I need to set this. Oh, yeah, keep my paper clean. To 70. To 70, there's 7. 7.1, 7.2, 7.2 and a half. 72 and a half. Again, Same center point because they are concentric, and I'll start with a gentle line first. It does look good. So now I'm going to go back and apply pressure. Make my object line. Now I need to draw my 8 little holes sized 16 millimeters. And these are going to be located everywhere that our construction line ring intersects each of these 8 lines. So let's set this to 1/2 of 16. That's going to be 8 millimeters, not 8 centimeters. So I need to come in here and go just below 1. I want 8. It's going to be 8 little millimeters. Okay. So each of these intersection points, start in the top one here, make sure you poke. These can be a little tricky to do with the compass. Go slow. Apologize for bumping the camera. The camera's like right next to me. Okay, so there's my first one. There we go. 8 of these circles. We'll go back through and give them little construction pluses. For the center lines. Center lines, that's what they're called, the center lines. Of course, I'll probably go back and darken them in just a little bit more. They're very faint. Happy little construction lines. Okay. All that's left now is to do some dimensioning and erase all of our extra extension lines here. I'll draw just a little bit before I do that and give myself room for dimensioning. I can see I already darken that in where I erased it. That looks better. All right, so for dimensioning, you must have a box that says metric. You can use standard box sizes here, like 1/8 by, I don't know, whatever you need to write the word metric. Maybe 1" by 1/8. So let's go ahead and get our T-square, and we will find a spot above and left of the drawing where we're not going to interfere with the drawing. So it's about, I don't know, maybe I'm already metric. I'll just keep it a metric, like 3 millimeters long. 1, 2, 3. Let's drop a line down. 1/8 of an inch. That's like what? That's like 1/2 millimeter. We'll just go with 1 millimeter. Let's just go with 1 millimeter. That looks good. It'll be a bit of a tall box, but that's okay. All right. So I'll go in this box. It says metric. Fill that in. All right, so now to do our dimensioning. These are circles. When we dimension arcs and circles, we don't use a standard dimension with an extension line. We use a leader line with a horizontal extension. These leader lines with the arrows, not this one because it is part of the curve, but this 8x diameter 16, the 110, the diameter 75, the diameter 145, we're going to draw these lines to a standard size. You don't just do them freehand. You can either do 45 degrees, which you can see this is not. The dimension doesn't line up with a 45-degree triangle. You can do 45, but since this drawing has lots of 45s, we're going to use 60s or 30s. So in the case of this 8 by diameter 16, you can see it kind of slopes down a little bit. We're going to grab our 30, the skinny side of our triangle. When doing leader lines, you actually put your triangle at the center of the circle you're dimensioning, but you don't start the leader line until you get to the edge, what is actually going to be the diameter. So you'll notice I reference the center of the circle, but I don't start the leader until the actual ring of the circle itself. So I'm going to draw my dimension line, called leader line. I'm going to extend beyond the drawing. And then we're going to fill in an arrow. This arrow should be elongated. It's not skinny. I'm sorry, it's not short and wide. It's long and narrow. And that ratio is supposed to be about 1 to 3. The length of this would be about 3 units to whatever thickness at the end is 1. So if this is 1 long this way, it's going to be 3 units. I'm sorry, 1 wide, 3 long. Yeah. All right. The end of my leader line, I'm going to draw a short, like 1/8 inch extension. And then I would write 8x diameter 16 centered on the extension. For the 45-degree dimension, I want to make my leader line with a compass. So I'm going to set it the same center point, and then I'm going to find a distance inside of this sort of pie shape that gives me enough room to write the number 45. That looks to be about right about there. And I will mark my compass. And then I'll go in and erase. Give me space to write 45, and then of course do your arrows. "45 degrees," using your best writing penmanship. Pencil personship. Yeah. The 110, you can see it's a diameter. We're going to set this. I'm not going to use 45 because at 45 it would go over the line I already have. So I'm going to use 30. Right through the center. And I'm going to leave a space in the middle of this pie. Starting and stopping on my construction circle. And again, you'll want to put in your arrowheads on your leader line. We have 2 more dimensions at the bottom. We have our inner diameter and outer diameter. Now, these can be placed anywhere around you want so it's not in the way, but you want to use, again, 30, 60, 45 degrees off center. And you can see in this point, we're going to be using the 60s to the left and 60 to the right. You could put one over here, one over there. It doesn't make a difference so long as they're not interfering with anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and match the drawing. Starting, let's see, the 75 is the inner circle. Draw there. I'll extend a certain number of units past the drawing. come up and I'll grab an extension line. And this 145, just to make it pretty, I want them to line up. So I'm actually going to come over here, draw a gentle little line just for reference. And then I'm going to draw again. I place my triangle at the center of the circle I'm dimensioning. I then start drawing at the diameter here until I get to my little reference line. Add an extension. And I'll erase my little reference mark. Forgot my arrowheads. You can use one of those arrowhead templates tools if you like as well, if you want to make sure they're really uniform. So the last step is just to put in all my lettering. Metric, the 8x, diameter 16, the 45, the 110, the 145, and the 75. But no, all of these dimensions are horizontal. Even the 45 is horizontal. This is horizontal, this is horizontal, this is horizontal. We call this unidimensional, right? Yes, unidirectional. Unidirectional dimensioning. One direction. They all go in the same direction. So we could draw these dimensions in the orientation of the actual dimension itself, but in this case, they're all horizontal. There is 462, the gasket.